Doom.
Doom, where you at?
Maybe he can hear me if I say it long enough.
No, actually.
Doom.
Oh, he must. Chibo, fuck up.
Commentary, son. Holy shit! I hear myself thinking.
One little action can really make a whole huge deal in the entire set.
DDD Dittos are fucking stupid.
Happy feet, combo.
PC survives that attack. Both players are on their feet again to hit each other. Oh my god.
Hello everybody, welcome to Directional Influence, episode 8, brought to you by VVV Gaming. I am Rapture, as always. I am with my fellow co-host, William Walsh, aka Brockcon. Will, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty alright.
Yeah, so we've got some pretty legit guests here. First off, back on the show for a second time is Doom. Doom, how are you doing?
I'm alright, hanging in there. Almost fell asleep on the show again, but I'm here.
Yeah,
awake.
Thankfully we grabbed you just before, so that's good. And we also have a very special guest, another VVV member, Chibosempai. Chibo, how are you doing tonight?
Yo, what's going on?
Not much. Not much. Anyway, before I start ranting about not much, we have a pretty stacked show today, along with Chibo and Doom joining us. We're going to be talking about some pretty... I don't know what the adjective is for it, but some pretty stuff here. And first off, we're going to be talking about ADHD and Mewtwo King getting banned from MLG Dallas. That literally just happened the day of this recording. So we're going to be discussing that. Then we'll be talking about Viridian City 8, in which Doom was the co-host of that tournament. We're going to hear how that went. I heard Will sucked ass there, so I can't wait to hear that.
Ew.
Thanks.
And you're welcome. And then we'll be wrapping the show up with lighthearted, but we're going to be talking about Midnight Gaming Championship, which just happened in Las Vegas this past weekend, and we have Chibo here to talking about it, considering he was part of it. So, with that said, we're starting off with Directional Influence, episode 8, motherfuckers. Let's go. So, Mewtwo King and ADHD. Due to supposedly what they did at MLG DC not too long ago, they have been officially banned from competition at MLG Dallas. Guys, I don't know, can someone maybe fill us in on what exactly happened?
Alright, so at DC, as you guys all saw, Mewtwo King got knocked into losers pretty early by Rich Brown. Huge upset, really awesome, So ADHD also lost to Rich Brown in winners finals, so the two ended up having to play in losers finals, and Mewtwo King was feeling pretty unconfident about the whole thing. He's got a bad record against ADHD, or maybe not necessarily a bad record, but he does not beat him all the time like he does pretty much everybody else. So, coupled with already losing to Rich Brown that day, Mewtwo King said he also had some controller issues. He really wasn't feeling very confident about the set, so he approached ADHD before they played and said that he really didn't care who won the match, and, he was pretty discouraged. Mewtwo King's got a pretty defeatist attitude sometimes, which is a shame, but it happens. So, he was, kind of contemplating throwing the set, implying that he wanted to split with ADHD, but ADHD never gave him a definite yes or no, and he just said, we'll play the set out, and then see what happens after that. So there was no real agreement made to fix the outcome of the set, which is what MLG is basing their accusation on. But anyway, after the set was played out, ADHD won it. People were saying, Mewtwo King sandbagged. He was doing some silly stuff like down being at the top of Brinstar to try to kill ADHD. People were accusing him of sandbagging. Word got out somehow that ADHD, after winning the tournament, was going to give Mewtwo King $300 of his $2,500 winnings check.
And from what I know, essentially they are basing the allegations on the fact that supposedly they were not only throwing the match in M2K's case, but also they were splitting money. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's right in the rule set of MLG that fixing the outcome of a match is strictly banned and may be punished by banning from an event.
So, Will, let's get your take on this first. What do you think about this?
I mean, I was, me and Doom, we both roomed with Wyatt with ADHD, so we kind of had an up close and personal encounter of everything that was going on. Pretty much, we watched the match, and everybody that was there and everybody that watched it, it was real. Anything that Mewtwo King might have done for maybe crowd reaction, yeah, he's gonna do that, and we all cheered for him. And the down B at the top was really awesome, and probably not something he would normally do unless he was in the mindset where, like he said, yeah, he didn't think he was gonna win. And a lot of us, we've seen ADHD played out versus Mewtwo King many, many times, and I'm not really sure what the set count is, but I'm pretty positive it's in ADHD's favor. So he could have just been doing that for a crowd reaction. And according to the agreement or whatever that they might have made, it's not anything that manipulated the bracket really, in my opinion, because they still played it out. They still, as far as anybody could tell, and nothing that MLG can refute, they put on a really good set. They both played it out, and just pretty much from what MLG is basing their so-called investigation on, I don't know, it just seems like it's all too convenient because there was no actual money, there was no transaction at all because, neither of them have their checks yet. I don't know, it's all a little sketchy to me. I'm really disappointed that MLG made this decision.
Yeah, and actually adding on to that, again, guys, nobody has received the money. They could have just issued a warning to ADHD like, hey, we really suggest that you don't give Mewtwo King $300 of your winnings. I'm sure that would have caused much less controversy. They can't, produce the videos of the tournament match and say, oh, Mewtwo King, you definitely sandbagged and threw the set here because you did one thing that got everybody going. You did one down B. Oh, big deal. There's just really no definitive proof. And, what they're using as their evidence is an AIM conversation, including Mewtwo King, that was posted on the MLG forums that says he sandbagged or something because, ADHD had agreed to give him money. And Mewtwo King himself has confirmed that that's not the case. It just was not that way. He made a very long post. I encourage all of you to read it. If you haven't read it yet, for the listeners, explaining the whole situation. ADHD never gave him a definite answer. He said, let's play it out. I was right there. I didn't witness the conversation firsthand, but I knew that Mewtwo King was not feeling confident, and, ADHD didn't agree to any form of deal whatsoever. They were not rigging the outcome of the match.
My first reaction to everything would be that the decision's a little bit rushed, per se, but when you think about it here, Dallas is in just a week and a half, so when MLG does need to make a decision like this, it does need to be made now. However, I think that we keep hearing about this investigation, per se. They never actually told us what exact evidence they have. They just say that they have insider resources, that they're not going to name anybody or throw anybody under the bus and whatnot. JV actually had written a post earlier today with the final word, how they're really pretty much not going back on their decision. They do have information on it, but we don't know what that is. But from an outsider view, I do think it's it's very harsh. It's definitely too much. To ban 2 players from the final event after attending, Mewtwo King's attended all 4 prior events, ADHD attended most of them, ruining their chances at so much money over what I think is such a frivolous thing. Some could construe it as bracket fixing, but considering we're already at the point of the bracket where we're dealing with only 3 players left and it's losers finals and both these players have already lost to Rich Brown, it's not like you can say, oh, you go on ahead, you have a better chance of beating him. When I get first place, I'll give you money. It's definitely not that. It's more like, as much as, hey, here's $300 for you because you need money because you don't have a job, kind of sounds like a John in a way. That really just sounds like a friendly transaction, which MLG can't control how they spend their money. And, it definitely deserves a good slap on the wrist, but definitely not banning them from one event.
Yeah, especially the finals with the most money on the line.
Definitely, and now they're not going to have 2 of their top players at Dallas. But then again, maybe Rich Brown will win this time. Or maybe you'll win. Maybe you'll win one.
Maybe I won't even go because
that's true.
It's like $500 from New York to Texas at this
Wow.
point, or at least that's what I saw on Mike Hayes' status. It said when he went to buy a plane ticket, the ticket went from, he's going from California to Texas. It went from $320 to like $512, like as he bought his plane ticket.
Yeah, one last detail about the whole thing. It's definitely like, MLG can't control how they spend their money. And like Chibo said, they definitely deserve a slap on the wrist and not a ban. I think that they really should have handled it more confidentially. They should have done their dealings under the table. Why tell anybody at all? Tell your mom, hey, I'm going to come up with $300 less for this event, but still going to make a shitload of money. It doesn't make sense to tell people because it either looks like a John, it looks like taking away from your own win, or it's just dumb. Telling people is only going to lead to drama, and especially at like a corporate event where when you're a top player, you're at MLG supposed to put on a show for the spectators. So just a learning experience for them really should not be a ban, especially when it's never happened for Brawl, and I don't think Smash at all. Period. So, there's no precedent for us, so why should the first offense for anybody be a ban from the finals? I think that's ridiculous.
Does anybody else think that, we know MLG isn't the happiest with Music King at this point. Do you think that perhaps the banning from Dallas has any sort of bias in it? Because we know that Music King's appearance at DC was less than favored, per se. Even though somebody had stolen the shoes he was wearing and we eventually found him in a trash can later after the tournament, the fact that Music King was walking around in kind of dingy clothes without any shoes on really does not look good for sponsors. Do you think these kind of secretly led into the decision without telling the public?
Oh, yeah.
I'd be inclined to agree with you. I know MLG has previously voiced discontent with him.
Yeah, and it's funny because at the beginning of the season they pretty much made him like the poster boy of it, like the guy to beat, which is still very true. But I don't know, I don't think it was like biased, more so it was a lot easier for them to make the decision. Like if something to add on to it. It didn't hurt, but it probably like didn't help. It was just a lot easier for them to make the decision overall.
Alright, so Viridian City 8. The major regional, almost close to national level event that is held by Alex Strife every year, pretty much, and he holds them in New Jersey. And this one was it was pretty close. It was the actual weekend right after MLG DC, which may or may not have affected attendance, but you know what? Alex threw it big anyway because it was held on his birthday. So you gotta give him props for that. Everybody was wishing him a happy birthday. We all went out to dinner afterward. It was ridiculous. We had I want to say close to at least 50 smashers in one Red Robin. Anyway, let's talk some more about the tournament. I know Doom, you were helping host that with Alex, weren't you?
Yeah, I was co-hosting it. Viridian City, always great events, and definitely an honor to be Alex's best or largest co-host. Not best. That's subjective. But anyway, I helped with the calling matches, doing setups, all that stuff. We had something like 80 people. I don't really know. I think it was 77 in singles. Plus, people in this region sometimes don't like to enter singles because they're afraid of anti and ADHD. But yeah, great tournament. This time, Alex flew in UTD Zach and Ultimate Razor from Texas. King Kong bust down from Canada. We had people like Verminubis come from way up in New Hampshire, other people from New England. TKD was supposed to come but had to bail close to the last minute because of school. That would have been really interesting to see TKD come. But yeah, we had the typical New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, New England, plus a couple really far away guests.
Don't forget Kira Flax from Arizona.
Oh, right, yeah. Kira was still around from DC. I guess he had his flight changed, his returning flight changed, so he could leave from New York or New Jersey. We had another really far away guest. He was housed by Chibo. Chibo, you would know better than I did if he came back for Viridian or if he just stayed from DC. I believe he stayed from DC, though.
No, the original plan right from the start was actually the first tournament that caught his eye was Viridian City 8, not MLG. but while discussing with it, because he's one of my R.O.B bros, we talk a lot and whatnot, and we decided that I would house him originally for both MLG DC and for Viridian City 8. He actually came to my house in Philadelphia the day before MLG. I drove him to that tournament, drove him back here, housed him for the week. And originally I was going to drive the VC8 and take him with me. However, since Vegas came up at the last minute, he had went with players from the UFB crew. But yeah, the original plan was to come for both tournaments because, I mean, if you're going to come to the East Coast, you better do it big.
Yeah, definitely. We know how to hold it down here.
So, Will, you obviously went to VC8, and I'm hearing that it was not very, it wasn't very pleasurable. Why was that?
Alright. So, I didn't think I was gonna go because I found out that my car overheated, and I pretty much had to bail on my entire carpool, which included, like the Buzz. I was gonna bring him, and he was gonna rape everybody, but couldn't do that. Sorry, Sammy. So I actually decided at the last minute, Friday night, the last train I could have taken into the city to possibly try to get to VC, there was a train that left from my hometown at 5:32 a.m. So I'm like, damn, I'm going to take that. I packed everything really quick. I was actually getting pretty excited because I can finally go to Viridian City again, and such a terrible decision. I got to Penn Station at 7:46 a.m. I met up with Vinny, Pentasalia, and Link X, who I haven't seen in a really long time, and we caught a bus, which was a bad decision because, man, New Jersey Transit, it's nothing about the New Jersey Transit per se that's terrible, just the fact that we didn't get on a bus until like 10:30. I didn't get to the venue till 11:30 a.m., so it took me 6 hours. Not to mention I stayed up the entire night just to get on the train to make sure I didn't miss it. Probably my fault. And I performed terribly. I ended up coming in like 33rd place. I lost to 2 snakes. I lost to Squall, and I lost to Biscuit, who I think is probably my personal counter. Like, I beat him the first time I ever played him, and I've never beaten him since then, and he's so... Oh my god, he camps so hard. But anyway, on the way back, it was just as bad. Just New Jersey Transit, oh my god. I left at 3:30 a.m., took a bus, and since I didn't plan anything through, this was the weekend of the 23rd and the 24th, where the actual Long Island Railroad system itself was completely backed up since they were doing work on Jamaica. So there was extremely limited service. By the time I got back to Penn Station around 4:30 a.m., I had to wait for a 5:12 train. I didn't actually end up getting home until like 8:30 a.m. Didn't sleep for 48 plus hours. Got home on Sunday and just slept the entire day. But luckily, as much fun as I didn't have during Viridian City itself, it made up for it with all the stuff we did afterwards, which again we could talk about later. But yeah, that's why my VC8 sucked.
I think it sounds hype.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good time. I think you're just being salty about it because you got like 100th out of 90 people or something?
Yo,
yeah, it always
every
sucks
time,
to get a millionth at a tournament, especially when you get up at 3 in the morning.
You know what sucks? Getting a millionth because I have to play Squall, and the only 2 out of the 3 times I've played Squall, I was feverish, disgruntled, frustrated, and in a terrible mindset.
Well, besides that, officially Will got 25th. Hey, you tied with Allied. Good job.
You also tied with UTD Zach.
You did.
Yeah, exactly. We both had bad days.
But anyway, first place is ADHD, not surprising. Nairo getting second. I'm seeing Nairo's name a lot lately. Did he just all of a sudden... I mean, I know he's been good, but what? He's been getting some really good placings lately.
He's always been really good. It's just for like a certain... There was a few months where he was either held back by his parents or whatever, where he didn't come to tournaments as often. But he would always place in the top 3, top 5, like consistently.
Nice. So, following him was Anti-Atomist, Ultimate Razor, Vinny, Nakat, Cable, Inui, Logic, etc. The list goes on. And for doubles, and again, this is Brawl, obviously, Anti and ADHD getting first, UTD, Zach, and Razor getting second, Nairo and Atomist third, Bizkin Riot fourth, Cable and K-Sizzle fifth, and Will, you got ninth with Logic. Good job. Good job.
Thanks, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, and then there was Super Street Fighter 4, if anyone cares. There was? Yeah, 8 entrants. 8 entrants. Props to Ryo for getting $40 for first. Good job to you. Don't know who you are, but good job. I hope you used a good character, because I don't even know who the fuck's in Super Street Fighter 4. But anyway, it seemed like a pretty legit tournament. I mean, once again, I'm going to point this out too, is that all these tournaments in that area are so stacked, and I know this was more of like less of a local, more of like a regional tournament, but still, you've got some really legit players going here and taking all the money from all the bad players, like Will and stuff. So, I don't know. It definitely looked like it was a fun time. I wish I could have gone.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but when you were reading off that results list for doubles, Biscuit and Riot got 4th. Riot is a Zelda player. Riot is the best Zelda in the entire universe. I mean, I know Dark Musician is supposed to be great, but, Dark Musician, if you're listening, come beat K-Sizzle and Cable in teams. They don't have that respect for you.
Come beat them in winners and losers and knock them out of bracket and force Cable and K-Sizzle. I think it was the first time they've ever teamed where they haven't won the tournament.
Yep, exactly.
And they were knocked out by Snake and Zelda.
Cable from winning something.
Ridiculous. Freaking crazy.
So Riot is incredible. Watching him is really something else. Just seeing Zelda lay down that much damage. Another upset that we saw was Inoue and Malcolm placing very low. Inoue and Malcolm also, like K-Sizzle and Cable, have a very good overall tournament history. They've never placed outside of the money. But this time I think they got, I believe, 9th or 7th.
They got 7th.
Yeah, they lost to UTD Zach and Razor in winners. They had to play very early, which was kind of disappointing because those are two good teams, but Texas prevailed over us, unfortunately, with their Snake and Game Watch, two of Inoue's problem matchups. So after that, they had to play Squall and King Toon in losers, and then right after that, K-Sizzle and Cable to get eliminated from the tournament. That's just how stacked these tournaments are.
Definitely.
Also, it's worth noting that Game 1 of Inoue and Malcolm versus Zach and Razor, Zach timed Malcolm out with 52 edge grabs, but did not get disqualified because the team's ledge grab limit rule was 100 total per team if it times out.
Congratulations to everyone who got money. Congratulations to everyone who did better than they thought they did. Also, shout out to our man Verm, solid 65th. I know you're out there listening. We still got you. You're still the best Gandalf. Don't worry about it.
Oh, about Verm. There's something that I wanted to do for Verm that he wanted me to make sure that I put this out there. I was personally watching Verm's matches, and part of the reason why he didn't beat a couple of the people which he would definitely beat on any other circumstance was, like, I saw him sitting in his shield and making epic reads, and as he goes to down air out of shield, I don't think he was using his own classic controller, which is not really as much of a John as you think, because if the controller's bad, it really does mess you up. He was trying to dare out of shield, and it was naring out of shield every time, and it was just unfortunate to watch, because he was getting very frustrated. And I know that he ran it back and $5 money matched these people that he lost to in bracket once he found his actual controller, and he, 2-0'd them. So he did pretty poorly in bracket, but he wants everyone to know, and all the Ganon mains that are supporting him, it's because things were just going off with his controller, and I was literally there watching it. It was very frustrating.
Also, Ganon's Nair is not a real move.
This past weekend, Midnight Gaming Championship had 7 people go, and they left with some salt in their wounds. Evidently, there's some pretty legit, not legit stuff that went down during the weekend event over in Las Vegas. And we've had some, well, I'm just going to say this first. In terms of the VV side, we covered this on the Losers Bracket yesterday. So you can check that out on vvgaming.podbean.com if you want to hear more of the VV side of this. Chibo was promoted to the Brawl Division Manager because Mike Hayes was the original person who did that. So Chibo is now involved with that. And I'm just going to say this right now because a lot of people, I've actually seen this being posted as we're saying this. Chibo is not the reason why anyone got dropped. Cheese is not the reason why anyone got dropped. No one intentionally got anyone dropped from VVV. So Chibo is not to blame with this, and I would know because I'm on staff and I'm aware of what's going on. So I'm just going to say that real quick. Now, to get to actual event, Chibo, you've told the story many times, so I would assume you can give us a summarized version, then get into the nitty-gritty of what we really want to hear.
All right, so we're going to start off with the events concerning the Vegas dispute. with MLG DC a week prior to the tournament. As everybody knows, there were 7 of us entered into the Midnight Gaming Championship Finals taking place in Las Vegas the week after DC. As there were some things that we're not too sure about the tournament. Originally, it was supposed to be single elimination, and just about all of us had emailed Midnight Gaming Championship to see if it could be turned into a double elimination, which is obviously more fair concerning how the seeding was done, more or less random. They said they were considering it, but we wouldn't find that out until literally the day of the tournament. What we did know, however, was the payout structure was $5,000 for first place and $1,000 for second place. Any Smasher knows this is such an inflated, awful payout system. I mean, not even MLG for its events pays out anywhere near $5,000. It's $2,500, if I believe. So pretty much only paying out 2 players out of 7 players that were chosen between 32 qualifiers, I believe, from throughout all of 2010 so far. And only 2 people get money. Even though everybody gets the free trip to Vegas, we thought we could do better than that. We're all trying to go to Vegas, have a great time, enjoy ourselves. It's not really for the kind of promotion we're looking for that an MLG event would show, with tons of pictures on the website, press releases and whatnot. I mean, it's Midnight Gaming Championship. We want it to be more, but we're really aiming to have a good time, trying to get money for Dallas coming up just 2 weeks after that. And so originally, Cheese and I were talking, and we were thinking about changing the payout system. I mean, why should first place get 5 times the amount of second place, and everybody else get nothing? And just a quick slip-in comment here, the reason I keep saying is 7 players instead of 8 was because every player was allowed to win up to 3 qualifiers throughout the series of tournaments, and I indeed won 3 of them. Other people, such as Cheese, had tried to win more than one. However, in Cheese's second qualifier, he ended up playing Mewtwo King in it, but I will get into that because that adds to the drama here. But in the final bracket, 2 of my Chibo entries made it into the top 8, while the third one ended up playing Fatal early in the qualifier, and I forfeited to him just to make sure he got in. Because, I mean, I'm all about Smashers trying to have a good time. I really wanted him to get out there. I mean, everybody else were either nobodies or people that didn't even show up to the qualifier matches that were disqualified. But any questions so far?
So let's get down to exactly what happened with the split. Like, what exactly happened? Why is it that those 4 decided they were going to split by themselves? You know, why was the reason? How did you guys deal with that?
The reason why the 4 of them split is still completely unbeknownst to any of us, except, I guess, the 4 of them. I mean, I do have my suspicions of why they did such things. But at MLG is when Cheese and I had thought of a split, whether we had done everybody's split evenly, which is, I believe, $800 and some dollars, or giving more to first and second place would obviously be the right way to go. And the 2 of us had asked every single one of the other players, all 5 of them, 7 minus us 2, if they would agree to the split or not. Even Mewtwo King at MLG DC agreed to the split, saying as long as first place gets at least $2,500, he's completely fine with it and will agree to it. Lee Martin said it was fine. Mike Hayes said it was fine. Fada was down for it. The only person who was a little shaky on it was Ally, who was about 50-50 on it. That's all that we knew about the split until we actually get to the tournament. We didn't discuss anything on Friday when most of us had arrived because Mike Hayes was not arriving until Saturday morning. And we also didn't get a chance to meet with the Midnight Gaming Championship referees and hosts that day. However, Saturday, the day of the tournament, Cheese, Fatal, and I, who had been hanging out most of that weekend, made it an issue to seek out Blake Pettigrew, the owner of Midnight Gaming Championship. We want to talk to him about the split because we know organizations such as MLG don't like splitting and whatnot. But what we want people to realize is that we're not just trying to split money between players. We're trying to change the payout structure and keep it a competition where players can earn money still by progressing through the bracket. We told him we didn't think $5,000 for first place was that fair, considering no seeding at all. I mean, Mewtwo King was playing Fatal first round, Ally was playing Lee Martin first round, while me and Cheese, on the other hand, we're playing each other first round, which, I mean, that's god-awful seeding, having us 2 play each other while Fatal and Mewtwo King are playing. It's completely unfair. We told him our idea of a new payout system for $2,500 for first, $1,000 for second, and $500 for the rest of everybody. And Blake Pettigrew completely agreed with us. He found it to be a good idea, and he was even supportive to the fact that he said he would draft up new checks for all the players just to avoid confusion, Didn't have to worry about cashing checks and then splitting it, mailing each other money, PayPal, and whatnot. He was being very supportive of the idea. So here's where we get to the nitty-gritty of everything. After hearing that from Blake, the three of us went down to the hotel room where everybody else was smashing and practicing for a tournament in Las Vegas instead of enjoying everything the city has to offer. And we told him, we talked to Blake. He was fine with everything. Now, this is the first time we discussed the split since MLG where everybody agreed. The response we were greeted with, pretty much by all of them, mainly Mewtwo King, words were, we don't want to do that split. We're splitting between just the four of us. That's it. And by splitting between just 4 players, they meant just the 4 players by name, not by placement. If it was just a top 4 payout, there would have been no problem with it. Cheese, Fatal, and I would be able to still fight for the top 4 placement to earn money competitively. But what they were trying to do is between the 4 of them, grab the top 2 spots, then distribute the money between the 4 of them evenly. Even Mike Hayes had said things such as, I have a $700 ticket I have to pay. Why would I do your split and get $500 most likely if I could do this split and get $1,500? So it really just doesn't make sense here. What they're doing was, I mean, some people have been defending them saying it's their money, they can do what they want with it. But this is all being planned before anybody has any money. The tournament didn't take place yet. And it's not that some people are just winning it and then just giving money to each other. They're planning ahead of time. Us 4 are going to have money in hopes that you guys won't.
Those 4 ended up getting money. Did Fatal get any money?
Well, the funny thing is because pretty much tensions were high between the 2 of our groups here, Cheese, Fatal, and I versus Mewtwo King, Ally, Lee Martin, and Mike Hayes. So almost like a war between us. As the first round matchup started at the tournament later that night, it ended up nothing had changed. Actually, a lot of people are angry about that. In exchange, mainly Cheese had tried to disqualify both Ally and Mewtwo King from the bracket due to technicalities because more or less they're trying to screw us out of money, so we were more or less trying to do the same to them. Like, I didn't lead it per se, but I wasn't against the idea, although it was more on Mewtwo King's case because we have undeniable proof that Mewtwo King flat out cheated in his qualifier and did not play his matches and had another player play them for him. And we did bring this up to Midnight Gaming Championship when it first happened before the trip in Vegas, but we were pretty much just replied with, we're looking into it, and nothing ever happened to it. So this is more of a last-ditch effort to get a final call on that. But either way, first round started. Unfortunately, I lost to Cheese due to major controller problems. It turns out I had packed the wrong controller, and I packed somebody else's practice controller, which was broken. It's things like where I'd go for a dash and grab, and I end up doing a standing grab because the analog stick was messed up. Then I get grabbed and lose a stock. Fatal 2-0'd Mewtwo King in a great set. I mean, there's been some word that it was recorded. I think some people have said by MGC with cameras floating around. We haven't received any footage yet, but Fatal beat Mewtwo King legit game 1. Game 2, I want to really stress this. Mewtwo King did not drop the set to Fatal. Mewtwo King did not drop the set to Fatal. Fatal beat Mewtwo King. Mewtwo King counterpicked Rainbow Cruise. Things were really not looking good for Fatal. And on their last stocks each, Mewtwo King was at a still low 60%. While Fatal's at way up there. He's probably around 150, 140, 160 kind of area. And they're at the very top of the stage. I believe it was around the falling blocks on top of the pendulum. Mewtwo King goes for a kill move and attacks Fatal's shield, who down airs out of his shield, completely fresh, killing Mewtwo King at 60%, winning the set 2-0.
So we're going to skip ahead in the future now. Or really just, after hearing, a lot of what we've heard before, just getting confirmation on it. Is there anything that you really haven't said, or is there things that are new that have come up, things that are juicy tidbits of info?
A good amount of it was said in terms of the business side of things on the VVV podcast last night, the Losers Bracket. Most of it has been said on Smash Sports as much as I could. The other interesting set of the tournament would be me versus Mike Hayes in the first round as well. There's another one of the matchups where it's one group versus the other, the splitters versus the all splitters, I guess, as you can put it. Game 1 was R.O.B versus Marth on Smashville. It comes down to the last stock. And let me back up a little bit. Before the match, I had asked Mike Hayes, look, all this drama is bullshit. Are we still friends? I don't want to put this behind us. He says, yeah, of course. Obviously, we're still cool and whatnot. Match begins, and I borrowed Cheese's controller for this because of how I mentioned my controller is broken versus Cheese. And somehow, in between those two matches, Cheese's controller had broken. As soon as the match starts, I'm shielding to the point where I'm about to have my shield broken. And within 1 second, I paused the match saying, I was not shielding. The controller is doing it on its own. I'm trying to restart my controller. I'm trying to unplug it, plug it back in, restart the match. And Mike Hayes tries to disqualify me for pausing. Literally going from, we're still cool, to trying to DQ me right away due to a controller malfunction. Completely not my fault. He's trying to say things like, I was going to read his role, which is bullshit. I wasn't even shielding about that. So the ref says, this is ridiculous. Why would I DQ him for that? His controller was physically not working. I go back to my broken controller I lost the Cheese with, and as the match comes down to a wire, I'm at a disadvantage in percent-wise. However, I get a very good gimp on Mike Hayes stealing his double jump with a weak laser, and I win Game 1. Game 2 is nothing spectacular, R.O.B versus Martha on Battlefield, and I'd lose. I forget how much it was. It wasn't too close, though. Then utilizing the awkward stage list that MGC had implemented after Mike Hayes had banned Jungle Japes, I had picked Luigi's Mansion. That's a stage I haven't played on in probably over a year, but I'm thinking about it, and all I can think of is R.O.B absolutely would destroy Martha on that stage. Mike Hayes, as I expected, counterpicked Meta Knight, and stock 1 is real neck and neck. Stock 2, however, he pulls ahead and gets a very lucky kill, and it's 2 stocks 0% Mike Hayes to my 1 stock 0%. However, as Mike Hayes lands the kill, he jumps up and screams yes, and accidentally pauses the game. Now, everybody thinks this is hilarious because people are calling me Cheese's apprentice. I'm pulling out that pocket DQ now, and I say, this guy paused. What's the consequences? Immediately, Mike Hayes is trying to say, oh, well, Chibo didn't get DQ'd earlier for pausing the game, even though it was completely not under my control because of a controller malfunction. But Mike Hayes was the one at fault for pausing the game there. The ref discussed it with other game officials there, and they decided that he would lose a stock, like most Smash tournaments. It came down to 1 stock 0% each, 1.5 minutes on the clock, and I won by timeout. And so that was the other hype match of the tournament.
Chibo, might I just point out that you said Cheese gave you his controller to use for this set, right?
That's correct.
Okay, because when you said something about a controller malfunction, I thought right at the beginning of the match, like, every button you pressed was going to be grab or something. But on top of that, like, I'm pretty sure, like, the drama that happened, a lot of the drama that happened, I think a lot of it has to do with that you were using Cheese's controller, just saying.
Well, I mean, I ended up switching back to my broken controller because for some reason either L or Z were stuck on Cheese's controller all of a sudden, which is why I was shooting whenever the match would start, so I had to switch back to my old broken controller.
It was probably Z.
It was, yeah, I mean, got that grab status on.
On Cheese's controller, every single button is mapped to make the opponent pause.
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I heard there's a cheat for that through Ocarina on Brawl that he invented. Most important thing here is the payouts and what happened with it. The moment Fatal had beaten Mewtwo King, everybody kind of gathers into a group. We got to talk payouts, obviously, because their plan is crumbling now. Like, they're not both guaranteed, or between the 4 players, they're not guaranteed top 2. What happens if Fatal places in the money now? So between every player except for Cheese and I, they kind of pushed us away every time we tried to get close, I guess because of my pause DQ on Mike Hayes and Cheese for nobody liking him. Nobody knew what happened. A new payout was determined. So tournament continues. Fatal, unfortunately, loses to Ally in winners, and then loses to Mewtwo King in losers finals and places 3rd. Both of my entered Chibos actually had to fight Mewtwo King in the losers bracket, which was quite depressing since he was knocked in the losers so early. But the final placements were Ally at 1st, Mewtwo King at 2nd, and the reason for that being Mewtwo King dropped the set to Ally in grand finals, everybody showing crappy characters like Ike and Falcon and whatnot. 3rd place was Fatal, 4th was Lee Martin, 5th place was myself and Cheese, and 7th place was myself and Mike Hayes. The payouts, I've heard a couple different payout structures that happened, or different splits, I guess, since it was still officially 5,000, 1,000. The money was Ally would get $2,000, Mewtwo King would get $1,000, Fatal, for third place at $6,000 payout, got an amazing $300, which is absolutely despicable for getting third place and beating U2 King. Lee Martin at fourth place got an astounding $1,500. For fifth place, myself and Cheese got nothing. And for seventh place, I got nothing. And Mike Hayes got somewhere in the ballpark between $300 and $700, probably around $500. I've heard a couple of different splits. So let's discuss that here. How does that work competitively where Lee Martin makes massive amount of money more than Fatal, for Fatal outplacing him and beating U2 King? And how does Mike Hayes make multiple hundreds of dollars while I outplace him and defeat him and get nothing? From a competitive standpoint, it makes no sense.
Wow. First off, I'm really, really feeling bad for Fatal right now. Like, he 2-0s Mewtwo King. Like, who does that? Who can say that they've done that that's not like Ally or ADHD? That's ridiculous. And he only made $300? I'm really upset about that.
Out of 6,000.
That's very, very disappointing. Especially as a crewmate of Fatal's. I feel really bad for him. Like, he pulled off one of the most amazing feats in the entire history of this game. And he kind of gets screwed out of a really large sum of money because some top players want to band together and be selfish.
That's essentially what happened, yeah. I mean, the fact that fourth place got so much more money than him is just really shocking to me. And the fact that supposedly Lee Martin got more money than Mewtwo King even because he had owed him some money or something like that. But I mean, I also find it ironic that compared to our original payout structure that we had proposed, Ally would have gotten $2,500 versus the $2,000 he actually got, and Mewtwo King would have gotten the same amount. And everybody else would have been able to go home with some money, would have been able to spend some money in Vegas, would have been able to help getting to Dallas. It was just a really good idea in our idea. I mean, call us selfish or not for trying to want money. But I mean, when there's a $6,000 tournament with 7 people, and that's the kind of stuff that went down instead, it's really disappointing.
Not to make this a personal attack on anybody, but how self-absorbed do you have to be able to say something like, "Oh yeah, man, I have a $700 ticket that I've got to pay off. Like, my expenses are more important than your expenses. I need $1,500 instead of $500 just because I have a ticket. You clearly don't have any responsibilities nearly important as mine." It's really disgusting that people can act like that.
One more thing, Chibo. What is, one thing you'd like to tell everybody to, leave with this? The one thing you want them to know about this when, wrapping this up?
I mean, the thing that's really going around is that there's so many multiple stories out there that are telling the Vegas story. I'm trying to say it with as little bias as possible, even though I do add my own comments here and there about why we propose such splits and whatnot. Mike Hayes has said his side of the story. Ally has said his part of the story. U2 King has said stuff, but I mean, people in the community are kind of choosing sides. I believe this guy, which really isn't the right way to go about things. I mean, you can believe whatever story you want and trying to use be objective to what did happen actually. But I mean, when it comes down to it, this just isn't how players should be acting. It's more bad rep for the Brawl community, just like what happened at DC. And this kind of stuff really shouldn't be happening. Furthermore, some players have been getting a lot of flack from this. Now because people are suspecting me of being the one that ratted out Mewtwo King and ADHD with the MLG problem, which is completely false. I can assure you that. I mean, the fact that this Vegas thing with me has nothing to do with anything else. The players that resigned from BVV and were dropped from it was because of Vegas, but it had nothing to do with me. In fact, all the decisions that were made to drop players and were resigning players was before I talked to Jerry about anything, was before I was the Brawl manager. So it's not that I want to be selfish and just clear my name, but that's the truth. And what happened, I have no say in who is dropped. I obviously did not make anybody resign. I did not rat anybody out. But I mean, hopefully people can just learn from all the dramas going on between MLG and MGC. Just act like freaking good players. Try to be good sports. Just be legit and not try to make deals behind players' backs. Be upfront about everything and just be good competitive sports.
Well, that wraps up episode 8 of Directional Influence. I always hate these parts of the night. It makes me sad face. But anyway, I first want to give a huge thanks to Chibo and Doom for being here tonight. Will for always being here. PD, wherever you are, I'm shaking your fist. I'm shaking my fist at you, actually. I want to give big thanks to VVV for hosting us 8 episodes straight, and hopefully for every other episode ever, which will be going to like $9.99, and then we'll bail out and troll you guys. And by the way, you can check out all of the VVV podcasts, which includes Directional Influence and the Losers Bracket, at vvvgaming.podbean.com. I definitely suggest checking out the latest episode of the Losers Bracket, not only because of some awesome stuff that we got to cover, but also because I edited that shit, and I co-hosted, so I'm also on there too. So 2 podcasts involving me. Pretty awesome. Not being egoish at all. Also, I would like to mention that you guys can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. If you aren't already, you can hit us up on our Facebook group, Directional Influence, and you can hit me up on my Twitter where I give updates on the show and where it's posted, etc., at twitter.com/VVVRapture. With that said, I give thanks to everybody being here again. Smash community, step it up, but you guys are overall handling it pretty well. Anyway, we say good night to you guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week on Directional Influence.